And I'll be back in 1 second. Let me see if I can make this connect again. Caching. Okay. Okay. Well, it's doing what we're calling the prepping. It's trying to cache, but it's not connecting. So you know what? We're going to get started. I'll check it in a couple of minutes. And if in the event it still hasn't, we're going to upload it. And people will be able to see.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Very good.
Yeah. Midweek. I look forward to the weekends now. I don't know why. I never did.
I'm making some adjustments as well. Camilla, we're working longer days. But then I've got my husband's working, same thing with him, but I have to have a little, you know what? We all have to carve our time. So at least one of those days on the weekend, that's our time. And I'm recognizing that, oh shoot, I need to do this more frequently. Yeah. But so how have the last few days been? So we're Wednesday, and for all of us that's watching, whether we're working at home or learning a new skill, how are you? How has the first half of your week been?
It's been quite busy. As you know, we're supporting, I'm working on supporting frontline workers, and it's keeping us on our toes. So we're offering free counseling sessions to nurses and doctors and paramedics or whoever might need. So in addition to the regular workload, we're doing that, and it's keeping us busy.
Okay, well, you're my hero, and those frontline workers are our heroes. So
for sure. I mean, we while we're at home and many people are complaining about the state of affairs, we don't realize how easier we have it by not being out there frontline.
Yeah. Well, you know what, without kind of further ado, my husband's an essential worker, and he shared some news today with me. So he's got to go in and we've a day at a time, but he's had some news shared with him that really put him on his toes. And you know what, but then again, like we got to take it a day at a time, and just he knows that he wears masks every day now, and just he wears the gloves, and now he just knows not to he's just making sure that he's got his physical distancing and not to let other things overwhelm him. But things affect men maybe differently than some of us women, and you've got a wonderful topic to talk to us about today, and that is men and mental health, and I'm excited to hear what.
Well, typically it's not a subject that gets a lot of attention. I mean, I'm not a man, obviously, and so outside of the mental health perspective, it's not an area that I would delve in, hands and feet. But I wanted to shed light on this topic because maybe today, more than ever, we are seeing such alarming statistics when it comes to men and mental health. And of course, men are our husbands, our brothers, our sons, our uncles. They're in our lives, and I think it's important that we support them because by supporting them and ensuring that they're okay, it makes us be okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like we're all intertwined, right?
Camilla, I echo what you're saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, women's mental health has got a lot of attention over the last many years because, women were always the crazy ones. We're the emotional ones. We're the moody ones when it comes to postpartum depression or menopause or, change of life transitions. And so we've gotten all the attention, and I feel like men have not. And there's many reasons for that. So I thought today we can talk a bit about that.
Yes, yes. So, oh gosh, it resonates to what you share.
Yeah. So what we've been noticing, particularly in Canada, is we're seeing alarming numbers of young men and middle-aged men being hospitalized with schizophrenia. So that's on the rise, and that's something,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
to look at. So that's important. Also, Statistics Canada, in the surveys that they do, they're showing that 10% of men have experienced some kind of mental health disorder. You
Okay.
know, I mean, there's 11% of women that are talking about it, but there's 10% now though of women that are, of men that are talking about it. So that's interesting, where the numbers were lower before. And here's another alarming statistic that I even was not aware of how high this was, but the greatest evidence of male vulnerability in mental health is actually in the suicide statistics. And what we're seeing is that 4 out of every 5 suicides are male.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah,
That-
that's like crazy. Those are crazy numbers, right?
Those are crazy numbers. That's a 75% plus rate.
Yeah. And so the question is like, what the heck's going on out there? Like, what happened? What's happening? And I think the number one, many, you know, people are researching this, people are talking about this, psychologists, doctors, and I tend to concur. One of the biggest problems is there's a stigma attached to mental health. And I know we're getting better at it as a society, but there's still a stigma attached out there in that, you know, men have to be tough, you know, that in order, you know, that they could fix their own problems, and that if they show that they have a problem, that, you know, it means that there's a weakness, that they're weak. And so they tend not to seek help. You know, they tend not to, I mean, I don't know about you, but even my husband is like, well, I don't need to go to the doctor. You know, if they've got some kind of physical ailment, they don't need to go. They can figure it out on their own, right? And so many men, things go undiagnosed.
Yeah. I totally support and relate. I mean, Camilla, been married for a lot of years. And it takes, you know, no two people are, you know what, it's two different people coming together. There's no such thing as we're one. Wait, you're an individual and I'm an individual, and then we're coming together, and then, oh, then you bring kids into it, and then life happens, and you know, you have lots of wonderful, beautiful times, but then you have all those other times where how do you get through those other times? You fast forward and you build a lot over the years, but then you're exactly correct. I'm kind of a, you know, I try to be to each is their own, but men, you know, yeah, it's not like they're just jumping right away on top of things. They may eventually do. I think what I find interesting, Camilla, is for those that they support they support mental wellness, they support counseling, but then they may feel that, okay, well, I've
Not
done
for
it
them.
before and that's okay,
It's
but
for
life,
everybody else.
different things happen. It's an ongoing thing we always want to be open to.
Yeah, and you know, we've talked about this before, but there are some, you know, mental health doesn't always come in the form of, you know, a sadness or, you know, like how we see, like, you know, depression of sorts. Sometimes it occurs in physical form. And I'm going to talk about later about some of the signs. And so, you know, because men feel like, you know, it's just a headache, I can deal with it. So the stress builds up, and they don't seek medical attention. Also, doctors, you know, because they're not seeing them, a lot of not seeing the men, then what happens is the statistics get worse because they wait until the last minute, and then the suicide rates are high because men aren't coping very well. You know, also, you know, now they're showing studies that men are experiencing postpartum depression. You know, a lot of the roles have been, you know, changed over the last little while. So men are participating more on the parenting aspect, and so they're starting to experience, you know, some of the issues on life transitions, but of course no one's talking about it.
True, Camila, it's true. I mean, I'm transparent. We are human, and you know, we work on. We want to be as attentive as possible, but you know, from a female perspective versus a male perspective, absolutely true.
Yeah, and you know, there's a Toronto Mental Health Network, and the co-chair, who's Dr. Don McCreary, he says that there's even low priority given to mental health issues in the research community. So people, like, the scientists aren't researching this area because, you know, maybe they're thinking, there's no need to. So you mean for women, it's more of a, we've banded together. So the health movement is self-directed. Like we go for it, right? Like we're in there. We're asking for the support. And I know socially, maybe it's more acceptable for us, or has been in the past. But we need to make men aware that, mental health is so important and critical, and it's not a sign of weakness if they need support.
Absolutely. Camilla, I have many years ago. Remember when we had my husband was going through some. He was feeling a certain way that he couldn't shake. He couldn't shake it, couldn't shake it, couldn't shake it, and then it got to the point where he had a hard time breathing. And this is going back. Our kids were. I don't even know. I think I was expecting for our second child, so they were going more than 21 years ago. And he was open enough because the first thing I said was, we start with our doctor, because our doctor, we don't go to school. You didn't go to school. You're not a professional. You don't know how the brain works. I said, we think we do. Wait a second. And you know what? You've got nothing to lose. And he was so in support of that, which is very, very rare. And you're correct. And then he's also of a West Indian background. And in many cases, and I see it across the Caribbean, oh, we'll just push it under the rug, push it.
Yeah.
No. You know what? We're human beings. Your brains are no different than, we're all human. I don't care what race we are. And that, another thing is, it doesn't matter about, we are human and our brains are going to work similar. And male work different than female.
What we're seeing with men, interestingly enough, is because they're brushing it under the carpet. So what they're struggling to deal with the anxiety and depression. So what we're seeing more so in men than women is that they have, how do you say, unhealthy coping strategies. So they turn to alcohol and drug abuse more often. There are sexual problems, not with themselves, like they're engaging in sexual misdemeanors. And a lot of that stems from depression and anxiety, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be, more transparency around mental health and substance abuse issues. We need to increase the awareness for men. We need to reduce the stigma. It's so wonderful to see, people like Dwayne Johnson, Prince Harry, they're breaking the silence. They're coming out and saying, yeah, I've suffered with depression.
Yeah.
And so they're reducing the stigma, they're increasing the awareness, and we need to do more of that.
Yeah.
Because like you said, no one is immune to stress. No. Stress doesn't choose whether you're male or female.
Mm-mm. And would it be fair to say, Camilla, that you can kind of go along thinking you're okay, and it may just be that one moment. It could be a trigger moment, whatever it may be. And I know I have a sister-in-law. I have a family member, if you will, and they were diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I know the journey. It was a 10-year journey, and she's doing amazing today. But it took, there was some stress factors that happened in her life that it just, and it's very real. And it's not, when it gets to that point, Camilla, it's a whole different other complex.
And there are many people that are suffering from, serious mental health conditions. And really the only way that they can be supported is through medication. And sometimes the problem is, oftentimes the problem is they don't want to take the medication.
Right.
But if they're on a routine, then they tend to fare better. They can hold down jobs, they can be in relationships, meaningful relationships, and life is good. But if they're not taking the medication consistently and regularly, then they end up having problems.
Yeah, very, very true. And sometimes they go through it a few times.
Yeah, and we need to do a little bit more education. We need to let people know, there's no need to suffer. There's no need to suffer in silence. There are some amazing, wonderful treatments out there. And there is a lot of support. So we need to encourage, not just men, but everyone, go see the doctor, go talk to the doctor. Let's find out what these resources are. I mean, I have lots of clients that will come to us frontline first and say, I'm not going to see my doctor because I know my doctor's going to put me on medication. And it's like, that's not necessarily so, it depends. It depends on what your situation is. Not all doctors are going to say, oh, let's write you a prescription for antidepressants. Like, not all.
And Camille, if I can just share this, and for everybody that's watching, this is such an important um, something to understand. In healthcare, your healthcare belongs to you as the individual. Your first line of report is your family doctor. But we have to be advocates of
Absolutely.
what we're looking for, right? So, because your family doctor is doing the best that they're aware of, like for you, but they're not in your brain. So, if people are looking for, okay, or this might not be the right fit, we have to be very, we've got to communicate that with our family doctors. Because if a family doctor wants to put you on med and you're like, no, no, I don't want it, you have every right to say, okay, I want, because the family doctor will refer you to the specialist.
Correct. Correct. And oftentimes that'll be either a psychologist or a psychiatrist in the mental health field. Yeah.
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 So,
So,
go ahead, hon.
no, I was going to say, some of the things we need, if we're living with men, we need to look out for some signs. How are we going to know that someone is struggling with, a mental health condition, possibly, or stress or anxiety or depression that's going on? Well, first of all, you're going to notice changes in mood, right? Maybe there's work performance issues. What we're seeing is, sometimes I have a client, he's done, I think, 4 jobs in 6 months.
Okay.
So they're quitting, they're starting, they're absent, they're getting fired. So there's issues. That's not normal behavior. Now they're going to come up with a bunch of reasons as to why that's going on, but I'm going to tell you that that's not normal. Okay. There's weight changes. Sometimes they either overeat or they undereat. So start paying attention to and start noticing those kinds of signs. Lots of, they pull away from behaviors or hobbies that they enjoy doing. There's, the sadness, depression going on. And sometimes there's physical symptoms, like I was mentioning previously, like it shows up in irritable bowel syndrome or stomach issues or headaches, and if those things are ongoingly, those could be signs of stress.
Interesting.
Yeah, but they're not going to talk about it. They might pop a pill and say it's going to be fine, but they know what's going on inside of them. I mean, in Canada right now, we've got this conversation of, legal cannabis going on. And what we're finding is people that suffer from anxiety, some of them tend to do well on using cannabis, but a lot of them are over medicating with it. And so that's also a problem, because now it's going to lead to drug abuse.
Yeah.
So it's important to be with a medical doctor, to be under the supervision of a medical doctor, so that, you could be guided.
Yeah. And Camilla, I have to share this because I know that in Canada it's new, in North America, but in many, many countries it's been there for centuries. And it's been there for centuries for the purpose of healing, not for the purpose of harm. And yet, because of the non-academia studies, if you will, it's where it starts, right? Because you have to have evidence base. But there's a lot unknown, if you will. So you see this in many other cultures, in older people where they may, but it's from a health medicinal. When my mother-in-law years ago, she was 55 and she had battled cancer for a decade, and then it came back. But what she would do was have tea. So she would boil. Now back then, and it was just partly because they knew the other properties, but there's just not enough information out. People do misuse. They don't understand, and then you have this scenario. So I absolutely 1,000% agree. They need to be working with their doctor. There are many doctors now in that field of cannabis that are able to provide the appropriate recommendation based on what it's being used for.
Right. Yeah, I think it's so important to connect. And look, there's so many ways that we can connect with the medical community, and I'll tell you that it's much easier to connect by one appointment and start the process that way versus trying to navigate, whether I need a treatment, inpatient, outpatient. Like, just let's forget about all that and make your first appointment. So whether it's with your family doctor or with therapist, by the way, we don't require referrals from medical doctors, so that's a good thing. Just pick up the phone, call, talk to someone, and we'll work with you to figure out the best path. Everything that we discuss is considered confidential. So, there's really no need to worry about where this information is going to land. But it's so important to make that first call. Yeah, I can't stress that enough.
It's, mind, body, soul. And Camilla, it's amazing because the mind is only just like with your profession, you've been very familiar with much of this over the years and working with people and not but you've worked practitioner experience and real world experience. But I absolutely 1,000% agree. The movement needs to continue. I do believe men go through menopause. I do believe they go through just as much as women do, but it shows up in different ways.
Well, they have to. I mean, we're born with so many levels of hormones in our body. I mean, what women are going to die with less hormones, but men are going to have the same levels they had when they were 20. It makes no sense. Of course, they're going to go through changes.
Of course, like they, for those people that are out, they're like, no, I'm like, really? You know what? When you jump off a cliff, do you go up or go down? Well, it's kind of the same gravity law. So it's what we do with it. So we keep the conversation going. And you know what? And you're right, we're intertwined. Men, women, and we are also in an era where there's different genders. So there's different, but I think just as you say, we're human beings and we need to recognize that we all experience this, but that there are incredible professional resources that people can go to, and it starts with the phone call.
Yeah, and the number one thing I want to leave people with is this. Asking for help is actually a sign of strength. It is not one of weakness. It's not, what you think. There's lots of resources available today.
I agree. Camilla, we're going to make sure this gets, and I will put this, with your permission, we'll turn this into an advertising.
Oh, wow.
Info, but I'm going to say this. I'm so in agreement with what you just said. Asking for help is a sign of strength. We all are familiar with the company TELUS.
Yes.
Okay. I had the privilege of working with one of the vice presidents of TELUS as a managing partner a number of years ago. Another story, another day. And when he told me this, I started to over communicate and keep asking questions till I understood. It drives people crazy. But Camilla, I do this for this reason. Like you said, he said, do you know, Michelle, the smartest people in the world are the ones that ask questions.
Yes.
It is strength. So if we keep, we need to know until we're comfortable, and it isn't about that person, this person, we need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I invite people to check out, it's on YouTube, Dwayne Johnson, Prince Harry, Demi Lovato. There's a bunch of people, famous people that have come out and spoken. Listen to what they have to say. It's actually quite empowering.
Very, very good. I may get the link from you, and for everybody that is watching, and if they may or may not know of who Camilla is, Camilla joins me 3 times a week, folks, and Camilla has a program called Let's Talk with Camilla. And in a very short period, Camilla she does have a great digital footprint. If anybody needs to, if anybody wants to just call and inquire, Camilla offers complimentary calls. She's definitely Camilla LaFranco. And let's talk with Camilla very soon, folks. Hopefully we cross our fingers in a few days. Things will be alive, but she's been in her space for 21 years. She is an expert in crisis management. She's an expert. She's a psychotherapist. She comes with the real world experience. And 3 days a week at 12:15. My apologies, we weren't Facebook Live, but we're going to get this up and running.
All good. Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Have a wonderful day, Camilla.
All right. You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.